Hey, welcome back to your favorite pre-calculus expanded course. We're going to take a look at reviewing rational expressions and their simplifications. Let's go ahead and use our rule. A to the m over a to the n would be a to the m minus n, right? Both of those are a base w here, so you can go ahead and 21 minus 6, that would leave you with 15 w's on the top, right? If you were to actually write out all 21, anyways, there are 21 of those, and you write out the 6 w's on the bottom, you would have 15 w's left on the top, right? 21 minus 6. Let's do it with some numbers as well. We got 64 over 8 would be 8, and I have 9 on the top, 3 on the bottom, so I'm going to be left with 6 x's on the top. Now, if we can go ahead and factor to simplify, we want to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to take a 5 out of both of these. And then I know 5 over 10. 10 is 5 times 2, so see how my 5's cancel. And I'm just left with x minus 4 all over 2, right? Because 5/10 is 1/2 there. Let's do that similarly for this next one here. I've got negative 8 over, I'm going to go ahead and factor an 8 out. So negative 8 over positive 8 just leaves us with a negative 1 on the top. So we got negative 1 over x minus 2. And why don't you go ahead and try that next problem right here. Go ahead and factor that. Pause the video. Should end up with that x plus 3 all over 4 there. And then notice this one, I have a 5x minus 12, and I have a very, very close 12 minus 5x on the bottom. Well, if you notice on the bottom here, if I take a negative out, that will change both of these signs. So why would I do that? Well, negative 12 plus 5x is the same as 5x minus 12. So you see how I got a 5x minus 12 on the top and a 5x minus 12 on the bottom. So I'm just left with a 1 over a negative 1, which is just a negative 1 right there. So sometimes factoring out a negative can be useful because you'll see that that'll simplify for us. The same thing similarly on this one, if you want to pause the video and go ahead and check yourself on that one. Should have factored out a negative as well, and notice that those factors cancel top and bottom, and actually end up with negative 1. Now this one here, I've got an x plus 8, but the bottom is not factored, so I want to go ahead and factor the bottom here. I've got x and x. I'm looking at that negative 16. So I'm thinking, well, factors of 16 would be, let's try 2 and 8. It's a negative, so one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. Let's go ahead and check that. I would go ahead and first outer inner last and make sure that I factored that right. I did factor that right. And notice that the x plus 8's cancel. So we just have 1 over x minus 2 as our simplified form for this one. You can go ahead and try this next one there by also doing a similar process. You should end up with 1 over x minus 12 on that one. So go ahead on this next one now. After checking that problem, 1 over x minus 12, let's go ahead and factor this one. Factors of 21. Let's try 3 and 7. Now it's negative 21, so one's got to be negative, one's got to be positive. Go ahead and check that, make sure that's right. Now notice on the bottom I have a 3 minus x, not an x minus 3. So this is where that comes into play, where we want to factor out a negative out of that denominator. And let's see if it's the same thing. If I factor a negative out, that changed both of those signs. Notice that's x minus 3. So sure enough, it did help us. So I have x plus 7 over negative 1. In other words, I could go ahead and take that negative up top. So negative x minus 7. Let's look at this next one here. We've got 77 minus 42x. I'll go ahead and factor a 7 out of that. And the denominator, looks like I can only take an x out of each of those, so I'd have 6x minus 11. Now, they're not quite the same thing, so let's take a negative out with that 7, so that would change those signs. And notice I have 6x minus 11 on the top, 6x minus 11 on the bottom, so we just end up with a negative 7 over x here. Go ahead and try that next one similarly. I should end up with a negative 2 over x once you try that problem there. You're going to have to take a negative out of that in the denominator there as well. Let's move on to that next one there. We got x squared minus 7x minus 30. So that'll factors of 30. I'm going to go ahead and try minus 10 plus 3 will do it for us. Again, check, 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 check. First outer inner last. Make sure you factored that correctly. And then I'm going to go ahead and factor, I'm looking at that 36, and it's a positive 36, so I'm thinking to myself, well, it's got to be plus plus or minus minus, and I got a positive 15x in the middle, so it's going to be plus plus. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 3 and 12 as my factors, because I know that'll work out once I FOIL that, and then you notice the x plus 3's cancel there, so we just end up with x minus 10 over x plus 12 here. You can go ahead and try that next one similarly. So you should end up with that x plus 11 over x minus 8 on that one. And let's keep going with some other types of factorization. Here we've got an x squared plus 20x plus 100. So I'm going to go plus 10 and plus 10 will do it for that one. And then I've got difference of squares on the bottom, x minus 10, x plus 10. So notice one of my x plus 10's cancel. So we have x plus 10 over x minus 10. We can similarly pause the video and do that next one as well. I should end up with x minus 11 all over that x plus 11. Keep going with some more factorization and reductions of rational expressions. We've got a difference of squares on this next one. So we'll have y minus 9, y plus 9. I'm going to go ahead and take a 2 out of each of those before I factor it. Make my factoring much easier. So I'll have y minus 9 and y plus 2. Notice my y minus 9's cancel. And so we're just left with the y plus 9 on the top. We have a 2 and a y plus 2 on the bottom. And you can try one similar to that right here. Notice you end up with the y minus 6 is canceling there. And you want to factor out a 7 from your denominator. Now in this next one, notice in the numerator, x cubed plus 10x squared minus 5x minus 15. And we're wanting to reduce this again. We're wanting to factor it. If there's 4 terms, that's your giveaway that you're probably going to be factoring by grouping. So I'm going to look at the first 2, and I'm like, oh, I can take an x squared out of each of those. And then let me look at the minus 5x minus 50. I can take a minus 5 out of those. And see how that would be negative 5x minus 50. And then on the bottom, I still have this x plus 10. Well, factor by grouping said, well, now I'm going to look at it and notice they both have an x plus 10. So we take an x plus 10 out, that's common, and I'm left with the x squared minus 5. There's our factoring by grouping. Notice we have a common x plus 10. So we just end up here with an x squared minus 5 once we've completely factored that. Why don't you try one factoring by grouping with that next one there. Go ahead, pause the video if you want to check yourself on this one. You should end up with x minus 11 times x squared minus 7 from factoring by grouping in the numerator, with the x minus 11's canceling there. And let's move on now. This is hoping that you'll recognize difference of squares. You remember how a cubed minus b cubed factors into a minus b a squared plus ab plus b squared. This is the same as x cubed minus 10 cubed is 1,000. So my a is x, my 10 is my b. So this factors into a minus b, a squared plus a times b plus b squared. Let's clean that up a little bit. Notice my x minus 10s cancel, so I'm just left with that x squared plus 10x plus 100, which by the way does not factor in further on that. You could go ahead and try that next one. Or if you want to check yourself on that, you should end up with that a cubed plus b cubed, right? 9 cubed is that 729. This one we got x plus 10 over x squared plus 100. Now you got to be careful here that this x squared plus 100 does not factor. So you're actually already in lowest terms. There's nothing you can do. It's not an x squared minus 100. That factors. X squared plus 100 does not factor. So be careful there. Let's take a look at this next one here. Y plus 11. I'm going to go ahead and factor that denominator there. So I'm going to try a y. Let me try a 10y. Let's see. I guess that'll end up being plus 1 minus 7, I believe. Let me double check that. 10y squared minus 7y plus 2. Yeah, that's it. Minus 7. And it looks like this obviously does not simplify anymore. But this is asking us, find all numbers for where it's undefined. Well, if y plus 1 equals 0, I can't divide by 0, then I have a problem. If 10 minus 7 equals 0, I also will have a problem. So if you solve each of those, it won't be defined at -1, and it won't be defined at 7/10. So it's undefined at both of those points. Okay. Similarly for this one, if we go ahead and factor, well, the top does not factor. Let's factor an x out of the bottom. Where is it undefined? When x is 0, when x is 1, and when x is -1. This is where it's all undefined. Remember, we can't divide by 0, so none of those can be 0. And you can go ahead and pause the video on this next one and try that. Here you'll notice that this will be undefined as 0, 1, and -1 if you want to pause that video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.